Hello, Daniel.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good.
So, how was your day? What did you do?
Um, I had a genetics test
Mhm,
in my genetics class.
mhm,
Um, One of the questions that I missed was asking, um, what do you call it when a chromosome is bundled up and into a corner so it can't be used by a cell
mhm.
because they have more than one copy, and so the cell puts it away so that it doesn't mess with the system. And I could not remember what the word was, and I asked afterwards, like other people who had finished what it was. Kendall said that she thought the term was bar bodies. Anyway, I totally forgot. Um, there was a really interesting problem talking about. It was an example of incomplete dominance, which means that there was a dominant and a recessive, but the heterozygotes, which had one normal gene and one recessive gene, had a different trait.
Mhm,
So you had the cream colored ones, which were recessive, and you had the brown colored ones, which were dominant.
mhm.
But then you had a golden intermediate, and it took me a sec to figure out what that was because you had to look at the fractions and figure that out for yourself, which is genetics. So, um, I feel pretty good about the test. I feel pretty good about the test. There were a few things where it was like I was expecting more random little things that she would have just mentioned that she would expect me to know, but because that's how her tests typically are.
Right.
Questions?
So, if I'm hearing you correctly, you had a genetics test, and one of the questions that you had a hard time with, you asked Kendall about afterwards when she got done. And then there was another question about recessive and dominant and
The in between.
in the in between gene.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that happened in your day?
Well, besides the genetics test, I had journalism class, which was cool because we learned about different structures of journalistic writing.
Mhm.
So, like the difference between how the New York Times typically writes articles and how the Wall Street Journal typically writes articles, which was really cool. Like, the Wall Street Journal will typically start with a story and then go into a topic and then end with a story.
Mhm.
Whereas New York Times will start with a description, go into the topic, and then end with a story,
Right.
which was really cool. And so I'm writing two articles for the Night Times, and so that's like another thing on top of all of my workload that I have to think about. But it's going good.
So if I heard you correctly, you talked about the in journalism, uh, how you learned about the how like the Wall Street Journal writes and then the New York Times
Mhm.
and how they like structure them differently with
Cool.
stories and topics and
Yeah.
stuff.
Good job. So, what are you learning about in this class?
In this class, we are learning about how to communicate in a way that is beneficial for everyone and in ways that are healthy, and how to do active listening and be mindful of other people's cultures while you're communicating. Because what's respectful In one culture may not be the same in another person's culture.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from you is you're taking interpersonal communications
Mm-hmm.
and you're learning to talk to people in a way that is clear and involved so that there's no miscommunication.
Right.
Cool.
Yay! High five.